We thought it was a perfect Christmas until the police arrived. Christmas Eve had always been my favorite night of the year, not because of the gifts or the food or even the traditions, but because it was the one night when everything felt still, like the world paused just long enough to breathe. No deadlines, no arguments, no unanswered questions, just warmth, laughter, and the illusion that life made sense. That night, our house glowed like something out of a holiday catalog. Soft yellow lights wrapped around the porch railing. Snow dusted the roof in a way that looked intentional, not accidental. Inside, the smell of pine from the tree mixed with cinnamon, roasted turkey, and something sweet baking in the oven. A record played softly in the living room. Old Christmas classics crackling gently through the speakers. My wife, Rachel, moved through the kitchen in thick wool socks, humming under her breath as she checked the oven for the third time in 10 minutes. "You're going to dry it out," I teased from the doorway. She smiled over her shoulder. "I just want it to be perfect." Perfect. That word had followed us all week. Perfect decorations, perfect menu, perfect guest list. This Christmas mattered to her more than she was willing to admit. Our daughter, Lily, sat cross-legged on a rug near the tree, carefully lining up wrapped presents as if order itself was part of the celebration. Every so often she glanced up at us, eyes bright, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Is Grandma really coming?" she asked for the 4th time. "Yes," Rachel said gently. "She'll be here soon." Lily nodded, satisfied, and went back to her work. If you had walked into our home at that moment, you would have seen a picture of stability, a family doing well, a marriage intact, a child who felt safe. You would not have seen the cracks, because we were very good at hiding them. Dinner went smoothly, too smoothly in hindsight. We laughed at old stories. Rachel poured wine. Lily talked nonstop about what she hoped Santa would bring her, carefully avoiding anything that might sound too expensive. The tree lights reflected off the windows, turning the dark outside into a mirror of warmth. At 7:42 p.m., Rachel's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it once, then flipped it face down. "Who was that?" I asked casually. "Just my sister," she said too quickly. "Running late." I nodded, but something about the way she avoided my eyes stuck with me. Still, I let it go. It was Christmas Eve. At 8:10, there was a knock at the door. Rachel's face lit up. That must be Mom. I stood to open it, already preparing myself for familiar chaos. Hugs, laughter, complaints about the cold. Instead, I found myself staring at 2 strangers. They stood side by side on the porch, framed by falling snow and flashing red and blue lights that reflected off our windows. Police. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. My first thought was that they had the wrong house, that this was some kind of mistake that would be cleared up in seconds. "Can I help you?" I asked. The taller officer glanced at the number beside the door, then back at me. "Mr. Daniel Harris?" he asked. "Yes." His expression didn't change. "We need to speak with you and your wife." Rachel appeared behind me, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice suddenly thin. The shorter officer stepped forward slightly. "Ma'am, may we come in?" The warmth of the house seemed to drain instantly. Lily peeked around the corner, confusion written all over her face. "Daddy?" she asked. "Who is it?" I hesitated. Every instinct told me something was wrong, something far bigger than a noise complaint or a routine check. But I stepped aside anyway. Of course. The officers entered, their presence heavy and unmistakably out of place among the garlands and ornaments. One of them closed the door behind them, sealing the world outside. Rachel's hands trembled as she dropped the dish towel on the counter. "This must be a mistake," she said quickly. "Is something wrong?" The taller officer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Harris," he said, "we have a few questions regarding an incident reported earlier today." My stomach tightened. "What incident?" I asked. The officer glanced between us before continuing. "Before we proceed," he said carefully, "is there anyone else in the home?" "Our daughter," Rachel said, her voice barely audible. Lily stood frozen near the hallway, eyes darting between the uniforms and our faces. The officer nodded. We'd like her to wait in another room, please. Rachel turned to Lily, forcing a smile that didn't fool either of us. Sweetheart, why don't you go to your room and play for a bit? She said. We'll come get you soon. Lily hesitated. Am I in trouble? No, I said quickly, kneeling to her level. You're not in trouble. Go on. She nodded slowly and disappeared down the hallway, her footsteps soft against the carpet. The moment her door closed, the room felt smaller. Please, Rachel said, clasping her hands together. Can you tell us what this is about? The officer took out a small notebook. This afternoon, he said, we receive a report involving a missing person. My heart skipped. A missing person? I repeated. What does that have to do with us? The officer looked directly at Rachel now. According to the report, he said, the last confirmed location of this individual was this address. Rachel's face drained of color. I turned to her, my pulse roaring in my ears. What is he talking about? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, Daniel, I can explain. The officer raised a hand gently. Ma'am, before you say anything further, you should know that this conversation may become part of an official investigation. Silence. The record player crackled in the background, cheerful and wrong. A missing person? I said again, slower now. Who? The officer hesitated. Then he spoke the name. And the moment he did, I realized that this Christmas had never been perfect. It had only been quiet. And whatever Rachel had been hiding had finally followed us home. The officer's next words would change everything. But I wasn't ready to hear them yet. The name the officer said landed between us like a dropped plate. Shattered. Rachel's knees buckled just slightly, but enough that I noticed. She reached for the back of a chair, steadying herself as if the room had tilted. No, she whispered. That can't be right. I looked from her to the officers, my heart pounding so hard I could hear in my ears. I know that name, I said slowly. Why would you be asking us about him? The taller officer closed his notebook. His voice stayed calm, professional. But there was an edge to it now, the kind that said this wasn't casual anymore. Mr. Harris, he said, the individual reported missing was last seen entering this house earlier today. The words didn't register at first. They just floated, entering this house. That's impossible, I said. No one came here today. We've been home all afternoon. Rachel didn't say anything. She was staring at the floor. That's when I knew. Not because I understood what she'd done, but because I understood that whatever this was, she had known it was coming. Rachel, I said quietly, tell me what's going on. She swallowed. Her hands were shaking openly now. I didn't think it would turn into this, she said. I swear, Daniel, I thought I was helping. The shorter officer exchanged a look with his partner. Helping who? I asked. Helping who, Rachel? She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were glassy, red-rimmed, filled with something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Do you remember a few months ago, she said, voice trembling, when I told you I'd reconnected with an old friend? I frowned. Your cousin? She shook her head. No, someone else. The officer stepped in gently. Ma'am, we're going to need you to explain exactly what happened today. Rachel nodded slowly, like she was bracing herself. He showed up this afternoon, she said, out of nowhere. He said he just needed a place to warm up, to rest. He promised he wouldn't stay long. My chest tightened. He? Rachel closed her eyes. The man you just named. I stared at her. You let a missing person into our house while Lily was here? He wasn't missing then, she said quickly. Not officially. He was just desperate. Rachel, I said, my voice rising despite myself. Who is he to you? Silence stretched. The officer cleared his throat. Mrs. Harris? She took a breath that shook her whole body. He's my brother. The world went quiet. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. You don't have a brother, I finally said. You told me you were an only child. I told you my brother was dead, she corrected softly. The officers both stiffened. Dead. I echoed. Rachel, what are you talking about? She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. "He disappeared when we were kids. My parents said he ran away. Years later, they told me he died. An accident. No body. No funeral. Just gone." The officer spoke carefully now. "And when did you learn otherwise?" Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. 2 years ago. I felt something inside me crack. 2 years. I said, "You've known for 2 years?" "I didn't know where he was," she said quickly. "Just that he was alive. He contacted me once. Then nothing. Until today." The taller officer nodded. "And today he came here." "Yes," she said. "He was hurt. Scared. He said people were after him." "What kind of people?" I asked. Rachel hesitated. The officer leaned forward slightly. "Ma'am, this is important." "He said he'd gotten mixed up in something," she said. "Something illegal. He wouldn't say what. Only that they found him. He wouldn't make it out alive." My legs felt weak. I sank into a chair without realizing it. "And where is he now?" I asked. Rachel's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't know." The officers exchanged another look, this one heavier. "You're telling us," the shorter officer said, "that a man reported missing was inside your home today and you don't know where he went?" She shook her head. "He left. I swear." He said he couldn't stay. He was afraid he'd put us in danger. "When did he leave?" the officer asked. Rachel swallowed. "About an hour before you arrived." I ran a hand through my hair. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded. "Why didn't you call the police?" "Because if I did," she said, her voice breaking, "they'd find him. And if they found him..." She stopped. The officer finished the sentence. "You believe he'd be harmed?" "Yes." The room felt suffocating. "What aren't you telling us?" I asked her quietly. Rachel looked at me, then at the officers. Then she said the words that made my blood run cold. "He didn't just come here to hide," she said. "He came to give me something." The taller officer's eyes sharpened. "What something?" Rachel hesitated. Her gaze flicked instinctively toward the hallway, toward Lily's room. "Rachel," I said sharply, "what did he give you?" She whispered, "I didn't keep it." The officer's jaw tightened. "Where is it?" "He said it wasn't safe here," she said. "He took it with him when he left." "And what was it?" The officer pressed. Rachel closed her eyes. "A flash drive." The room went completely still. "Containing what?" the officer asked. Rachel opened her eyes again, and when she spoke, her voice was hollow. "He said it proved who was responsible for everything that happened to him, and who would come after him if they knew he still had it." I felt sick. "You let him leave with it?" I asked. "I didn't have a choice," she said. "He was terrified." The taller officer straightened. "Mrs. Harris," he said, "that flash drive may be evidence in a serious criminal investigation." Rachel nodded weakly. "I know. And by allowing him to leave," the officer continued, "you may have put your family at risk." That's when a soft sound came from the hallway. A door opening. We all turned at the same time. Lily stood there in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed bear, eyes wide with fear. "Mom," she asked, "why are there police in our house?" Rachel rushed to her, pulling her into a tight hug. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said, though her voice wavered. "Everything's okay." But it wasn't, because just then, the officer's radio crackled to life. A voice came through, sharp and urgent. "Unit 12, we've got an update. The missing individual has been sighted." The officer looked up. "Where?" he asked. The radio paused. Then the voice said, "Less than 2 blocks from your location." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. The officer looked at us, at Rachel, at Lily, at me. "Mr. and Mrs. Harris," he said carefully, "we're going to need you to stay right here." "Why?" I asked. His answer came softly. "Because whoever is looking for him may already be closer than you think." And as if on cue, something heavy slammed against our front door. Once. Hard. The knock wasn't from the police, and whoever stood on the other side wasn't here to celebrate Christmas. The second knock against the door came harder than the first. Not a knock, A demand. The sound reverberated through the house, rattling the ornaments on the tree. Somewhere upstairs, a picture frame fell with a dull crash. Lily whimpered and buried her face into Rachel's chest. Both officers moved instantly, hands on their holsters, bodies angling toward the front door. "Stay back," the taller officer ordered quietly. My legs felt rooted to the floor. My mind raced through 1,000 possibilities, none of them good. Whoever was on the other side wasn't lost. They weren't confused, and they definitely weren't carolers. The third impact came, lower this time, right where the lock was. Rachel's breathing turned shallow. "Daniel," she whispered. I pulled Lily gently from her arms and pressed her against my side, my hand resting protectively on the back of her head. "Don't look," I murmured. The shorter officer leaned toward the door and shouted, "Police, identify yourself." Silence. Then a voice. Calm, measured. "Open the door," the voice said. "We don't want to make a mess on Christmas." My blood ran cold. The taller officer keyed his radio. "Unit 12 requesting immediate backup," he said sharply. "Possible armed individual at residence." From outside, the man laughed softly. "That won't be necessary," he said. "We'll be gone in 5 minutes." Rachel shook her head frantically. "They found him," she whispered. "They found my brother." Another strike hit the door, with splintering this time. "Ma'am," the officer said firmly, "we need you to tell us everything. Right now. Who are these people?" Rachel's voice trembled. He said they weren't police. Not officially. Private contractors. People who make problems disappear. My stomach twisted. Disappear. The deadbolt cracked. "Get to the back of the house," the shorter officer ordered. "Now." We moved without arguing. Down the hallway, past Lily's room, toward the sliding glass door that led into the backyard. Snow pressed against the glass, untouched and glowing faintly under the floodlight. Behind us, the front door finally gave way. Wood shattered. Boots hit the floor. Heavy, purposeful. "Clear the living room," someone barked. Rachel clutched my sleeve. "They're not here for us," she whispered desperately. "They just want him, if we stay quiet." A gunshot exploded through the house. The sound was deafening. Lily screamed. The officers shouted commands. Another shot rang out. Glass shattered somewhere near the tree. "Move!" the taller officer yelled. The sliding door flew open, cold air rushing in. Snow crunched under our feet as we stumbled into the backyard. The officer slammed the door behind us and shoved a patio chair against it. "Run to the neighbor's house," he ordered. "Don't stop." "But you," I started. "I'll be right behind you," he said, already turning back inside. We ran. The cold burned my lungs. Lily sobbed against my chest as I carried her across the snow-covered lawn, Rachel struggling to keep up beside me in her socks. Behind us, another gunshot echoed, then shouting, then silence. We reached the neighbor's porch just as police sirens wailed in the distance, closer now, louder. I pounded on the door. "Help!" I shouted. "Please!" The door flew open, revealing our neighbor Mark, wide-eyed and pale. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. "Call 911. Rachel cried. "They're inside our house." He didn't argue. He ushered us in, slammed the door, and locked it. Through the front window, we watched red and blue lights flood the street. Police cars screeched to a halt. Officers poured out, weapons drawn, surrounding our home like it was a war zone. My knees buckled. I sank onto Mark's couch, still holding Lily, who had gone eerily quiet. Rachel paced the room, her hands shaking violently. "This is my fault," she whispered over and over. "I brought him here." I grabbed her wrist. "Stop," I said harshly. "Right now, that doesn't matter. Lily's alive. That's what matters." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, an officer knocked on the neighbor's door. "This area is secure," he said, "but we need to speak with you." They took us back outside. The snow was trampled now. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind. Our house, our perfect Christmas card house, stood dark, its front door shattered, windows broken. An ambulance idled nearby. Is he alive? Rachel asked immediately. The officer hesitated. We located a male matching the missing person's description in the backyard of the adjacent property, he said. He was injured. Rachel covered her mouth. And I asked, he's alive, the officer said. For now. Rachel collapsed into sobs. But the officer continued, he wasn't alone. My heart dropped again. We apprehended 2 suspects attempting to extract him, the officer said. They were armed. One escaped before backup arrived. Escaped. Where's my brother now? Rachel asked. He's being transported to a secure location, the officer said, under protective custody. And the flash drive? I asked quietly. The officer studied me. He no longer has it. Rachel stiffened. What do you mean? It was recovered, the officer said. Hidden on your property. My blood ran cold. Where? I asked. He glanced toward our house. Inside the tree stand. Rachel let out a broken sound. He hid it while Lily was decorating, she whispered. He told me it was safer where no one would think to look. The officer nodded. It was smart and very dangerous. Another officer approached and whispered something to him. He turned back to us, his expression grave. Mr. and Mrs. Harris, he said, the contents of that flash drive confirm your brother was involved in exposing a large-scale criminal operation, corruption, money laundering, contract killings. Rachel swayed. And the people who came tonight? I asked. They were there to make sure he and that evidence disappeared, the officer said. And now? I asked. The officer met my eyes. Now, he said, your family is officially part of this investigation. Rachel's breath hitched. What does that mean? It means, he said carefully, your Christmas isn't over yet. As if summoned by his words, another officer jogged up. Sir, he said urgently, you need to see this. They led us to the back of the house. In the snow, just beyond the fence line, footprints led away into the darkness. One set, heading toward the woods. The officer crouched beside them. The one who escaped, he said quietly, didn't leave empty-handed. Rachel's eyes widened in terror. He took something, she whispered. The officer nodded. Yes, he said, and based on what we found inside, he stood. We believe he knows your family's names. The wind howled through the broken house. Christmas lights flickered weakly, and for the first time that night, I understood something with terrifying clarity. The police hadn't arrived to ruin our Christmas. They'd arrived to warn us, because whatever had followed Rachel's brother to our door wasn't finished with us yet. Daniel Harris learned that night that some truths don't arrive gently. They arrive dressed as holidays, wrap in family, and knock when you least expect them. Christmas didn't just expose a secret. It revealed how fragile safety can be, and how far love can be pushed when the past refuses to stay buried. Sometimes, the greatest test of a family isn't what they celebrate together, but what they're willing to face when everything falls apart.